it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and I'm here for the Dig It Out or Use It Up Creator Hop. I want to thank Renee Morgan from over at Courtney's Card Hops for putting this all together and having this fun theme. So I decided to use my Nouveau Gilding Flakes, and I will tell you, I remember now why. I probably didn't use these after the first time that I did, because they were kind of messy, kind of a pain in the butt. But I pulled out a bunch of old wood stamps. I have not used wood stamps in a very long time. I pulled out my Nouveau Gilding Flakes. I pulled out some metallic cardstock from Nina Creative Collection that I actually never opened, and I really couldn't tell you how long I've had it. I used my Brutus Monroe embossing ink to stamp all of the images, and then I pulled out my embossing powder that's called Sticky Stuff. It's by Judy Kins. This is actually really cool, and it really works well with this. You're going to have to use something sticky in order to have the gilding flakes stick to it. So this heat embossing powder that's called Sticky Stuff is actually really great, and it leaves that little bit of stick. You can see that stamp I've had for years, and it wasn't even opened out of the package. I thought it was really cool that they made it out of a piece of wood, and I got it. But that one actually didn't end up stamping very well. So here I am doing the heat embossing after I put on the sticky stuff and stamped all of my images. I end up just making 2 cards. I had an idea for other ones, and they just didn't turn out the way I wanted, so 2 is what I ended up with. This butterfly one is actually one of my favorite stamps, and I used to use it a lot years ago, but I haven't used it in quite a while. So after you heat emboss it, like I said, it does stay sticky, so you want to make sure that you don't touch it. So you want to make sure that you have a bucket or something that's fairly high that you can put the gilding flakes in, because they are so flyaway, they fly around everywhere. I had gilding flakes everywhere in my craft room, I think. All over my desk, all over me, all over in my hair by the time that I was done with this. And one mistake that I was making is, so I was holding the card fairly high, and I would blow it to try to get out to see where I still needed to brush it off, and I would blow the flakes up every single time that I did that. So then you kind of see me start taking it off. Now you do need a bristle brush that's a sturdy bristle brush, not too hard, but something definitely kind of stiff so that it will get all of those excess gilding flakes off. Like I said, here's that Christmas tree stamp, and it didn't stamp very well, so I wasn't really able to do that. Now here I add a bunch of different gilding flakes. I have the silver, the rose gold, and then the gold. And I really liked how these couple came out that I ended up doing that way. So there is that once I get it all finished and all the gilding flakes on. And after I was sitting there looking at them, I was thinking I could have just used embossing powder and not had to go through all that big mess, because it probably took me a good hour to clean after I had them everywhere throughout my craft room. So that heart vellum paper that you see there is just from my stash. I am using Momenta, what is this? Die set. And when I used, don't ask me what I was thinking, because I honestly don't know. When I originally cut it out, I was thinking it was not going to look like that, and cut the piece out that it was the panel. I don't know, again, I don't know what I was thinking. So I ended up cutting it out with the Nina metallic paper and using the frame to stick inside of the main piece. I was thinking it was just going to put that decoration around the outside of the piece, not that it was going to cut out a frame. That was what I was thinking, and obviously I was wrong. So after I did that, I cut the metallic paper out. I ended up pulling one of the flowers off that I had to glue back in later, while I was taking the pieces out. I decided to leave that heart vellum underneath it, just gave it a little pop of color underneath that I liked. And because of the gilding flakes are they're beautiful. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're not beautiful by any means, but it was definitely a job to play with them and to have them all over and then have to clean up from them, which part of it was probably my own fault because of how I was doing it, but I really don't know how else you could do that without making a mess, to be honest. So I glued the piece of vellum onto the card base, and the card is an A2 size card, so it's 5.5 by 4.25. And I just glued that right onto the card base. Then I'm going to pop the frame in there, and then I'm going to fit the other card panel inside of the frame with all of the little decorations. And I actually think it came out really cool. So if you see the butterflies when it gets to be a closer picture, the butterflies look almost broken, but that's actually how the stamp is. So it wasn't that it didn't stamp well, that's just how the stamp is. So I'm going to finish piecing this card together. And the snowflake one, which I actually really liked how it turned out, I wanted to use that white tree on top of it, and since that didn't turn out, I have to do something different. So I'll be playing with that later. I'm going to save that one for later. But here I just pop on, like I said, pop in that panel and just kind of make it fit throughout the other die cut frame. And then that is pretty much it for this card. I do end up, because some of the flakes in it, I think it was some of the sticky embossing powder stayed on the panel, and then when I put the flakes on it, they stayed in it, so it gave it a couple little sparkly things in areas, and I didn't want to smear it because I actually really liked how this card came out. So I ended up spraying both cards down with shimmer spray that I did not have in the video because I did that afterwards after I decided what I wanted to do. So the next one, I used a piece of the metallic paper and I used an embossing folder, and the embossing folder it looks like a spring type one. I tried looking for it, but I couldn't actually find what the name was of it, but it is by Doris, and it just has some big kind of abstract-y looking flowers on it, and I ran the metallic paper through that. I cut the hummingbird on the black paper out of a circle die, and then these dies on the side were from Hobby Lobby I got years ago on clearance. They say believe, hope, and love, and I end up using the believe on this card. And what I did was I cut it out 3 times with some black cardstock and just glued them together so it gave it a little dimension on there. I used some fun foam to pop up that circle, and I just cut it out with the same die through the die cutting machine, and then just popped that right on there along, like I said, with the believe, and I really liked how this card came out. So even though they were a pain in the butt to use, I do love how the gilding flakes look, but like I said, I think with some embossing powder you could really do the same thing. So those are my 2 cards. Again, I want to thank everybody, and make sure you click on the one below me, who is the next on the hop. Thanks, and take care, everyone.